Welcome to New Jersey Now. I'm Mark Bonanno. Today, the winds of change. Governor Murphy's push for clean energy in the Garden State are centered on his wind turbine farms along the Jersey coast. Proponents say it could result in more revenue for the state, more jobs, and less dependency on fossil fuels to promote cleaner air to breathe. But critics are calling the wind farms a threat to wildlife and blaming them for the recent deaths of whales washing up on our beaches. A lot to discuss. Joining me now for more is former state senator and former New Jersey Board of Public Utilities Commissioner Bob Gordon, who is now focused on Governor Murphy's clean energy plans. Senator Gordon, you spent a long time in the state legislature. You recently retired as a commissioner at the State Board of Public Utilities. Tell us about your time at the BPU and what you did.
Well, it was a very exciting time and generally a very positive experience. I just left April 1st, 5-year term. And I never expected this to happen, but I landed there just when the utility sector and the clean energy sector were experiencing just transformational change. And New Jersey, I'm proud to say, was really on the cutting edge of a lot of things. So I got to be part of a really groundbreaking effort to advance clean energy and to help make New Jersey the center of it all. So it was a great experience.
So one of your main focuses at the BPU was the state's wind energy initiatives. Governor Murphy has been very ambitious about having New Jersey have completely clean energy by 2050, with wind energy as one of the main components. Where do we stand on these plans now?
Well, New Jersey may not be the first state to get steel in the water. That'll go to Massachusetts. The Vineyard Wind project actually began construction in early June. But we're clearly leading the nation in terms of scale and in terms of the innovative things that we're doing. In 2019, shortly after Governor Murphy took office in 2018, really within days of his taking office, he directed the BPU to advance offshore wind. Legislation had been passed years before during the Christie era, and nothing happened. Things changed with Governor Murphy's arrival. In 2019, the Board of Public Utilities solicited applications from offshore wind developers to develop a number of areas off our coast. In 2019, we approved the first project, which is called Ocean Wind, which is being developed by Ørsted, a Danish company, the largest offshore wind company in the world. 2021, we had another round of applications, and we accepted 2 more applications, one from a company called Atlantic Shores and another project from Ørsted. The Ørsted projects are off Atlantic City, about 15 miles. Atlantic Shores is further north off Ocean County. One portion of it is a little closer, about 9 miles, but the object is not to create any kind of visual impairment. And the plan is for these projects to generate eventually 30 to 45% of our electricity needs, which will be a huge deal when it comes to improving our air quality, making us less dependent on fossil fuels, and the best part of all, I think, it's going to create thousands of jobs and a whole new industry for New Jersey.
So how many jobs can these projects possibly create for New Jerseyans?
Well, we're thinking just from these projects, including the manufacturing operations that are now in place, we're talking about 7,000 to 8,000 jobs just with this first project.
We have to look at the costs of getting these things built. Inflation is a real factor. How much does the cost of steel impact what we're doing or trying to do here in New Jersey?
Well, you're raising an important point because I think we're at a crucial point in the evolution of offshore wind in New Jersey, because the applications were submitted to the state in 2019, 2021, and it was a different economy then. Since then, interest rates have gone up, the cost of steel has gone up, other components, supply chain issues have emerged. So the developers are coming back to the state, and really all the other states along the Atlantic seaboard, and saying, hey, we need to renegotiate these deals. And policymakers are appropriately reluctant to do that. Developers have to absorb some business risk. And on the other hand, we have to balance that against the potential benefits of offshore wind. I guess the bottom line is policy making is always a balancing act. And at the BPU, we were constantly balancing our desire to mitigate the impact of climate change, but weigh the impact on ratepayers, because what's the point of dealing with climate change if we're going to drive everyone out of the state because of higher electrical costs, particularly on the industrial side. What I can tell you is our estimates now are that the impact of at least the deals that were made will be about less than $5 per household per month to achieve what we've approved. Now, if the deals change, we have to revisit those numbers. But it's, I don't think it's going to bankrupt people, but we have to be sensitive to, all of these incremental costs we're imposing.
There's the economic impact, and there's also the aesthetic impact. You've talked about trying to minimize that, but one thing that is immediately stuck in people's consciousness is dead whales washing up on the shore in New Jersey, our beloved Jersey shore, with the idea that this construction of these wind farms is somehow directly related. Now, federal government agencies have said there is no tie, but how would you answer critics saying that this is hurting our wildlife?
Yeah, I understand their concerns. Much of the criticism is being funded by fossil fuel interests, interestingly, but there are no facts to support that work on offshore wind is affecting marine life in any way. First of all, the work really hasn't begun yet. What's interesting and what people should appreciate is the federal government started noticing an upsurge in whale deaths in 2017, long before we even approved the project. There are thousands of turbines all over the world. We're not seeing any whale deaths there. What is happening, experts believe, is that as the temperature of the water changes, the fish that provide the food source for whales are moving with a changing temperature. And the whales, not surprisingly, are following them. And unfortunately, they're following them into the sea lanes. So what you're seeing is an increase in vessel strikes on the whales, and that's what the experts believe are accounting for the deaths. What I will tell you is that when these projects start construction, there are really some very interesting approaches to mitigating the impact of sound and so on. They actually create a wall of air bubbles that stops the sound so that the wildlife around the construction area aren't affected. But, there is a major effort underway to prevent any kind of adverse impact on the marine ecosystem.
There's the practicalities of this as well. Major European companies, including the aforementioned Danish company Ørsted, recently said, not only do we need more money from the state to get this done, but we're so concerned about the progress of this whole thing that we're considering walking away completely. Should the state and the citizens of New Jersey be concerned that that's actually going to happen?
Well, this is a negotiation process. There's, some chest thumping on both sides. In the end, rational people will sit around a table and work things out. Ørsted and Atlantic Shores, which is a joint venture of the French company EDF and British Petroleum Renewables, have invested an awful lot in the state. They're investing in factories to make the components. They're investing in workforce training and want to become a part of the New Jersey community. So I think they're going to be reluctant to walk away, but they are worldwide companies. So, if they're not making a return in New Jersey, they can go somewhere else. So I hope that we'll just have a serious conversation and work things out.
To sum up, we've been talking about, can this get done? The question is, in terms of all these wind energy initiatives in New Jersey, should this ultimately get done?
I believe it should get done. And by the way, all these comments are my own. I'm not speaking for the government anymore. I think that New Jersey probably is dealing with greater risks from climate change than any other state in the country. We have a 130-mile highly developed coastline, which is at risk from sea level rise. I think we need to address these environmental issues. We should be doing it for the health reasons. And an added dividend is this is, can be a real boost to the New Jersey economy, particularly in the southern part of the state, which has not had the economic opportunities that other parts have. So I think this could be a real winner for New Jersey. But, we gotta balance things out.
Thank you very much for your time, Senator Gordon. It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure as well.
We'll be talking more about clean energy when we come back with the panel. Continuing our discussion about the ongoing issues about wind energy here in New Jersey. Dan, FDU recently had a poll out about what people think about this initiative. What did it say?
So what we found is when we asked the question two different ways, and this is one of the ways we run experiments to try and figure out what the effect of various considerations is on how people feel about these issues. So we ran the question two different ways. Way number one, we said some people are opposed to this, some people in favor of it. How do you feel? And we do that. People in New Jersey are marginally in favor of it. Not overwhelmingly, but by about 9 9 points, they favor moving forward with the wind farm project. However, when we ask the question a different way, instead of saying some people are opposed to it, we say some people are opposed to it because there have been the reports of dead mammals, dolphins and whales washing up on shore. We say there's no evidence that this is connected to it at all. Once you do that, instead of being 9 points in favor, New Jersey residents are 16 points against continuing with the wind farms. And most of that difference is coming not from Republicans, who aren't really in favor of it anyway, but Democrats. Basically, what you're doing is asking to trade off clean energy versus charismatic, intelligent mammals that are dying. And when you ask people to trade anything against cute mammals that are dying, the cute mammals that are dying are going to win. We should say there is no evidence that the wind farms are actually causing this. The state legislature, after we did the poll, pretty quickly convened a meeting to bring in experts to reiterate there is no connection. We don't know that this is actually causing anything. But this is still a very potent way of attacking these wind farms, and people mostly who are opposed to it for other reasons.
And those dead sentient whales have been a major Republican talking point.
Well, I think that the reason it's become a talking point for Republicans is you've said this is something that actually works in terms of messaging. But the concerns are largely over the reliability and the affordability and the feasibility of transitioning to new renewable technologies. And at the same time, I believe that we need a diverse portfolio of energy generation. It provides all the things we just talked about, affordability, reliability. New York, New Jersey, President Biden have all made efforts to restrict our access to other types of clean generation like natural gas. There's a bill moving through the legislature right now that would put a cap on nuclear energy at 40% forever, not contemplating potentially new technologies, small reactors. And so I think we've been forced into kind of a false dichotomy of we have to pick one or the other. And I think that the best way to move forward would be to explore these new forms of generation while still having the backbone and the reliability and affordability provided by older sources like natural gas and nuclear. And we are seeing the same thing in polling and in focus groups that people across Ds, Rs, and Us are moved. When you first just say, are you in favor of the transition to 100% clean technologies, it's very favorable. But when you start adding in whether it's questions about the marine life, whether it's questions about affordability and reliability, especially folks who remember being off of power during Superstorm Sandy and other, extreme weather events. So I think that it's important that we take these things into consideration. And the economic viability of these projects has always been kind of something that was a challenge. And now with interest rates the way they are, with the cost of inflation for the supplies that go into building this infrastructure, these companies, these European developers are getting significant incentives from the federal and the state government, and now they're coming to states saying we need more help. So I think that before we put too many more eggs in that basket, we have to take a hard look and make sure that New Jerseyans at the end of the day, not only when they flip the switch, does the light go on? Can I keep my gas stove? And cost, frankly, if your utility bill is going to go from $50 to $250 a month, and talking about affordability and being able to stay in your home, that's going to be a significant challenge. Not to mention the cost, for property taxpayers, because large energy users like government buildings and schools will have to also bear that additional utility cost.
Brendan, there's a lot at stake here, both economically and politically. One of those European countries that's so involved in this, Ørsted, the Danish company, has said, listen, not only do we need more money from the state of New Jersey to get this done, but we're getting so concerned about how this is going forward. We may have to step away from this project completely. Should that alarm Governor Murphy, or can this still get done?
Well, I think the Murphy administration has been very clear on this issue that they would still like to see this get done. This was a goal that they laid out. It's part of the movement to deliver energy in a cleaner and more efficient fashion. Again, all the issues that were raised by both of my colleagues here today that have to be unpacked first, but the aspirational goal itself of having wind be a big part of delivering cleaner energy, renewable energy in New Jersey is something that the Murphy administration has been pretty clear on. We want to do it. Now, that being said, are they going to do it in a way that gives away so many things? I don't think anyone in New Jersey, if they get away with gas stoves, there will be a revolution, I agree, in this state. So that's not happening anytime soon. But will they do it in a way to balance some of the concerns that are now being raised? And then, oh, by the way, sprinkle on top of that this new issue with wildlife, marine wildlife, dead whales. That's a brand new issue that I think maybe even 6 months to a year ago, no one had anticipated. Now, we have a lot of testimony already from very credible sources, both at the New Jersey legislature and at the federal level, that has nothing to do with the current effort to build these wind farms off of the coast of our shores. But the bottom line is when you see story after story about dead whales washing up and you feel like there's a more of a propensity of this kind of activity happening and there's no other explanation that's been given, there's going to be a natural movement to potentially push back. So I think ultimately, to answer your question, yes, they're very still committed. How they're going to navigate those issues that have been raised here today, it's a jury still out.
Well, this is either going to be a Moby Dick type obsession with the white whale, or this could be the clean energy future for New Jersey. We'll have to see. We'll be right back. Welcome back to New Jersey Now. I'm Mark Bonamo. As we look back at the COVID-19 pandemic, it was a true life lesson for us all. It exposed many issues we face that we may not have been aware of previously. Among them is not just our own health, but the infrastructure of our healthcare system, namely a nurse staffing crisis. Debbie White is the president of Health Professionals and Allied Employees, and she joins me now to discuss. So, Ms. White, even before the pandemic, we had a serious nurse staffing issue here in New Jersey. Please tell us about it.
This has been going on for decades. The staffing issue, the crisis we see ourselves in right now, is something that is decades old. When we went into a corporate model in healthcare, it seems that staffing became a line item on a budget that was cut to its lowest number. So what we were always seeing was downstaffing, understaffing. As unions right now, we are leading the fight against the staffing crisis right now in order to hopefully impact everyone. And this is not just a statewide issue. This is also extending into other states like Pennsylvania, Connecticut. I believe their bill was just signed into law. Pennsylvania's is on the verge of being voted on in one of the houses. Oregon has a bill that is moving very quickly. So we're not necessarily alone in this issue. But the issue didn't start with the pandemic. This issue started with corporatization of healthcare.
What do you think the shortage in nurse staffing is attributed to?
The pandemic surely made it worse. During the pandemic, healthcare workers were put through such a traumatic situation that many of them can't and won't recover. Many of them have left the field. Last year, we conducted a study. We contracted with a professional polling company to do a survey of healthcare workers in the state. What we ended up with was a survey of nurses because they were the ones who responded. And what we found was absolutely alarming. 30% of the nurses who took our survey statewide had left hospitals. Of the 70% that remain, about 72% of them want to leave. And the most alarming statistic is those between 0 and 5 years experience in hospitals, 95% want to leave. 95% of new nurses want to leave the profession. And I'm talking hospitals. So what we have is a revolving door. We have nurses coming in and we have nurses leaving. So the issue that we need to address in this crisis is retention. And that's what we're looking to solve with the legislation that we are pushing in our state.
One of the reasons for this revolving door could very well be burnout. How can you work against burnout in terms of not just practicality, but legislative efforts?
It's all about staffing. So the legislation mandates staffing ratios. This is not a brand new subject. It's a well-studied subject. It's born out of the research that has been done on this, are the levels that are required for safe staffing.
What impact can expanding training have on all these ongoing systemic problems?
Absolutely critical to expand training. It's absolutely critical that we continue our recruitment efforts and draw more people into the profession. But let me tell you a quick story about a new nurse. I know a few students who are headed into the profession. They just graduated, they have to take their boards. Every year in this one particular school, the school has students that have graduated from the prior year who've been in the workforce come and talk to the students that are ready to graduate. This new nurse, well, she will be a nurse once she passes her boards, told me a story of these graduate nurses who've been in the field for a year, who told the class that is soon to graduate, I'm leaving. I'm not staying in the hospital. None of us are going to stay in the hospital. We're all out of there. That tells you the problem exists in retention. We can't retain the nurses at the bedside. We can recruit, we can fill those positions, but they won't stay.
In this challenging environment, what would you say to somebody who comes to you and says, I want to be a nurse?
I would say join us in our efforts to fight for safe staffing. I would say it's a noble, wonderful profession, but we need safe staffing levels in order to be able to take care of our patients in the way they need to be taken care of. When you have ratios, there are better outcomes, there's less death. In fact, adding one more patient to a nurse's assignment increases the likelihood a patient will die within 30 days by 7%. It decreases negative outcomes like pneumonia, bed sores, infections, hospital-acquired infections. It increases reimbursement for the hospitals because we know with better outcomes comes better reimbursement for the hospitals. There are so many things that safe staffing will do, and it's been well studied throughout the years because California has a law which was passed 19 years ago. There were safe staffing levels mandated. It also increases satisfaction for the patient, increases satisfaction for nurses, and keeps them at the bedside. It addresses the retention aspect of this issue that we're trying to address with this law. So if we do pass this law, it'll benefit hospitals and greatly benefit patients.
Debbie White, President of the Health Professionals and Allied Employees, thank you very much for your time. That's all for New Jersey Now. We'll see you next time.